Welcome to the Multifamily Investor Nation podcast. I'm your host, Dan Hanford, one of the managing partners of a group called PassiveInvesting.com. Glad to be here with you. With us today, we have two guests. We have two guests that are going to be here talking about a project that they acquired together with their group. We have Kyle Marcotte and Van Hagye here with us. And before we dive into this asset that you acquired, it's actually two assets that we were talking about in the green room a little bit, two assets that you kind of are combining into one. 86 units total, currently being called and branded as Ventura Apartments out of North Austin, Texas, was acquired earlier this year in April in the first asset, and then July in the second asset. Before we dive into that asset, why don't you share with the listeners a little about each one of your background and kind of where you are right now in the multifamily space. And I'll turn it over to you first, Kyle, and then when you're finished, you can turn it over to Van.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm 23 years old. Van is 22. We are operators in Austin. I actually started, I went to school at UC Davis and I was playing Division I soccer. I was studying pre-med and I dropped out my sophomore year and I started in the industry at 20. So I raised capital. That was how I started. I did a 107 unit deal in Kentucky with some members of the Jake and Gino community, and I raised capital purely just a capital raiser. My goal was to get involved in a GP and understand the operation so I could do it myself at some point. Luckily enough, moved back to Austin after college, met up with Van, and we decided, hey man, we're making a lot of other people money, but I think we can do this ourselves. And so we closed these two deals that we're going to talk about today, and we're currently under contract to close before the end of the year on 110 unit here in Austin as well. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, and then piggybacking off of that, similar story for me. I've been in Austin my whole life, born and raised, and then I went and did an engineering internship, and so I was working full-time project engineer, like at a plant. Was very disenchanted by it like 2 days in, so I started doing all sorts of dumb stuff, drop shipping, options trading, crypto, anything I could get my hands on, and then eventually stumbled into real estate. And so I had the genius idea of like figuring out the BRRRR method, and I was going to get a duplex, rent it out to my buddies back at college. And then I got lunch with Kyle, and we had like known each other in high school, never really been good friends. And I got this weird competitive tilt to me. So when I heard that he was doing 100 unit, I was like, oh, hell no. So turned down the duplex and then decided that I needed to figure out syndication. Ended up doing the exact same thing, parallel, finding a good group, good partner out of San Diego, Andy McMullen. And then we helped raise money in North Carolina for one of Matt Faircloth's deals. And I've gotten to be in there and help out with a little bit of the administrative stuff, like see how the sausage is made. And then, like Kyle said, we came together, said, hey, why can't we be the operators? We're born and raised in potentially, the hottest market in the United States. So then we just spent like a year and a half berating these brokers, trying to get a deal sent to us. And then eventually we got a bone thrown our way off market, which is the first 42 unit that we'll talk about. And then since then, it's just been really quick growth. And we're hoping to do $25 million by the end of the year and then see what we can do next year. But now we're just excited about being like lead sponsors and starting to bring on capital raisers and starting to spread our influence across Austin.
Awesome. That's great. Well, appreciate those introductions. Let's dive right into this asset or a pair of assets that are going to be included or kind of combined into one asset that was acquired there right out of North Austin. So let's go ahead and first talk about how did you find and how did you source this deal originally, or these deals?
Yeah, so the first deal, Retama Trace, the 44 unit or the 42 unit, was sourced from a broker, Jim Young, out of Newmark. Like Van said in the introduction, we've been hitting that guy for about a year and a half, just trying our best to get a deal with him. We actually lost a property in January with him, and he liked the way we conducted ourselves. We were very clear, we had good business practice, and we were just mature about the whole process, and he really liked the way we handled ourselves as a group. So he said, you guys lost this one, but I'm going to keep you in mind. You're going to be on top of my list. And sure enough, a month later, he sent us this one and we were able to close. And then the second one is literally right next door. So the seller of that property was like, if you guys can close the property next door, you can obviously close this one as well. And we're looking to actually liquidate our whole portfolio here in Austin. So that just ended up being very good luck. And now we own the two properties next door, and they're run as one property now.
So did you build a relationship with the seller next door after you acquired the first asset?
Yes, they reached out to us. They're a well-known group. They knew a broker that I also had a year-long relationship with, and they were like, we're trying to sell this. We want to engage the group that just bought next door because they're clearly multifamily buyers who are able to close deals in Austin. So we'd like to just save the headache and go with these guys because we are confident in them.
So they still use the broker contact to make the relationship?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually a funny situation because the broker didn't really do much. We were actually dealing directly with the seller. And then immediately after we closed, the seller said, "Hey, want to buy something else? No broker." So
That's funny.
yeah.
So when you say these are next door to each other, do the property lines basically butt up to each other? Is that how close they are?
Yes, they literally share a fence.
Yeah. The walls of the properties are literally 10 feet apart. Yeah.
Okay. So from a high level, when you guys heard about this other asset, this I guess it's a 44 unit that was attached to the 42 that you bought secondarily that you closed in July. So when you guys had that one come across to your desk, what was kind of the vision and the plan of being able to merge these properties? Are we like taking down the fence in the middle, and now that you have 86 units, you're going to maybe add some additional amenities that both properties can share, or is the plan still just to keep them separate, but just to share management?
So it's actually funny because the 42 unit that we bought, it was originally zoned as condos. So it's got thick walls, thick floors, fireplaces, a nice like inward facing green courtyard. Like it's a really nice place. And then the 44 unit right next to it, hotel style build, nothing but a parking lot, really small one beds. And so they were two very different plays. So we knew that the 42 unit was going to stand on its own. But we thought, man, how cool would it be to get that 44 unit and like share management, cut expenses, get creative. And we actually were not interested at all because we had seen the 44 unit before we had actually closed on the 42 unit. And we were like, I don't know, it looks bad. The roof's really rusty. We weren't interested because, like I said, it's built literally like a motel. Like even the rooms, the floor plan looks like a motel. But then after we kind of like talked to more people and understood, became a little bit more savvy investors and learned to like think outside the box a little bit, we thought, wait a second, there's a huge spread of value right here. And so then we started talking to a property manager. We said, hey, right now we're getting kind of part-time management because they own a 300 unit, right across the street. So we're able, because typically those awkwardly small properties are hard to find good management for. But we were able to share like a maintenance man and a leasing manager. But we said, hey, could we just get a full-time person if we own both these properties? And they said, well, yeah. So we said, sounds good to us. And the other thing is that 42 unit, like I said, condo build in good shape. 44 unit, not so much. Rougher tenant base, rougher, property condition, just a little bit more of a lift. And so we had to justify that and make sure that the business plan would actually make sense. And we're currently doing that, and it's going as planned. It's been rough. We picked it up with a lot of bad debt, but the submarket's handling it really well, and we're getting, keeping the good tenants in, and we're getting the bad apples out. And ultimately the 42 unit turned over really fast. There were only a handful, maybe one or two bad apples. And as soon as we got them out, it's going really well. And then we're going through the same process with the 44 unit. And then eventually the plan is to break down that fence, share the amenity, because the 42 unit has a pool, for example, that the 44 doesn't. So once we're fully comfortable with the entire tenant base and the operations of the property, we will tear down that fence. We're already getting the same color schemes going as far as exterior paint, signage and stuff. And there'll be one property so that we can hopefully dish it off to a more sophisticated investor as an 86 unit.
So let's walk through the initial. I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit and kind of talking about lots of different things, which you're giving me lots of different ideas of questions to come down the line here in just a few minutes here. But let's take it back a little bit, step further, because I know we were jumping ahead just a little bit. But talk about the terms of the offer and how many rounds of offers did you maybe go through? I know this is two different assets, so both of them might be just a little bit different. But kind of walk us through kind of the process there. And what did you end up paying on each one of these assets as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can do Retama, and you want to do Quail Van? Does that work?
Sounds good.
Perfect. So on Retama, the Jim, our broker, basically said, if you send a $4.7 million offer, this will be accepted. Period, full stop. And so we were like, it works at 4.7. It actually appraised for 5 after closing. So we felt very confident about that. So no negotiation, one offer, boom, 4.7. That was how that one happened.
Yeah. And then that put us at a basis of 111 a door, I believe, for mostly 600 square foot one beds, washer dryer connections. All had connections that we went in and put washer dryers. And then for Quail Creek, we got it for 100,000 a door because, like I said, it's 44 straight tiny one beds, 400 square feet, legit legal one beds though. They have a wall and a bedroom and stuff. So, and again, no amenities. So we got that for $100K a door. And yeah.
Okay. And when you guys, was it the same thing there? They basically said, get to 100K a door and it's yours.
I think we had actually worked out that price. So there was a little bit of a negotiation there. Because again, most people didn't want to touch it because it's a 44 unit. So it's too big for the mom and pops. It's too small for the institutional people. But we kind of, bird dogged that value that we see, especially in the submarket, which we can talk about later. But it's an area that's been historically rough that's really starting to turn over really quickly with the introduction of like Austin's new MLS team and some other stuff. But we kind of found that opportunity and negotiated the 100K a door.
Was there any hard earnest money on these deals?
Yes, there was. Let's see, on Retama, we had
47,000 earnest, but no hard money. And then we had 10,000 hard on Quail and 44,000 earnest.
Yeah. Which is pretty good. And Austin, most stuff is requiring a lot more.
We can't. Now they're on our next deal. They're asking for quite a bit more. So we got lucky there.
Yeah, these smaller deals, I feel like they haven't really gotten to that point of requiring earnest money, depending on the size of the deal and stuff like that. Once you start getting to the larger 100, 150 units or more, you pretty much have to have hard money on these assets, especially in a city like Austin. I know our group has been looking inside of Austin as well. We haven't actually acquired anything in Austin yet, but pretty much everybody is requiring some form of hard money, unless you're just a very well-known group and they have a lot of trust and value built up into you. But obviously with these two assets, be able to get it even for, basically you're at 1% for the earnest money deposit. Now, did it go hard after DD or was it all non-hard, non-refundable?
Yeah, it went hard after the 30-day due diligence on both.
Okay. So basically none of it was hard day one except for the 44 unit was 10,000 hard day one.
Yes.
Okay, good. And so at what point with each one of these did you end up touring the property?
So we actually, let's see, on Retama, we bought it as Retama Trace, the 42 unit. We got out there during the freeze. So there was the snowpocalypse in Austin or all of Texas, if anyone's familiar. And that was right when we were thinking about buying it. And so we went out there kind of on a ghost walk. And it was really cool because all the tenants, all the water was frozen. Like one pipe had burst. Everyone was helping each other move water and stuff. So we got to see like the tenant interaction. And we got to see as vulnerable as you can really see a property after the aftermath of all the power outages and stuff. And then we actually didn't see a unit other than that. And that was part of the hard money thing too, is we said, hey, send a 4.7, you're in. Let's get in there, like 30-day due diligence, day one. So we were pleasantly surprised when we got in. And then Quail Creek, we did do a tour and we got to see a vacant and then a occupied.
Cool. So walk me through due diligence. So we've now got the deals under contract. We're now into the due diligence phase. And is there anything that on each one of these things that came up during due diligence that you had to handle or deal with?
Yeah, on the first deal, the 42 unit, we had a unit 116 that was our only Section 8 tenant, and she had ripped out all the interior cabinetry and all the interior doors as well as the fan, and there was standing water about 2 feet in there. So needless to say, we were very concerned about that. We actually ended up writing into the PSA that had to be resolved. They had to either pay for that to be just a make ready and actually be able to be lived in before we could close, and hopefully evict for just damages, because she was also threatening tenants with knives and causing people to move out. I should also mention she had boarded up her front window because she had literally kicked it in, broke the window. So we negotiated that, and they did fix the entire thing, and she actually ended up moving out as soon as any of the eviction conversation became, because she's a Section 8 tenant, you can lose your ability to be Section 8. So immediately she left, and the tenants were extremely grateful. I think that was a huge, an amazing way to just enter a property. The tenants already being so grateful that you've removed the one person that's making everyone feel unsafe.
Yeah, and now that unit actually is renovated, and the rent is increased on that unit 35%. So pretty insane. It's kind of a notion of the submarket, what's going on there, and a lot of the turn that's happening. But another funny thing we noticed on that 42 unit, a lot of the leases, we didn't have digital leases. We only had paper leases. And rent collection was only being done through cash order and checks. It had actually been taken off of online rent payment. So it used to be online with a website and a portal. They took them off, and it hurt collections. And so we're sitting there like all this low hanging fruit, just unbelievable. Like a lot of the tenants' incomes looked great. We didn't have a lot of information on them. A lot of the tenants were month to month. So at first that was a panic to say, oh my gosh, everyone's month to month. What's going to happen? They could all leave tomorrow. What the heck? But just like getting attuned to the submarket and like figuring out what's going on and realizing that these people are actually, the income is really not a big barrier for them. It's more so the background check, the credit score, that sort of stuff. So we were able to work with management, get actual leases on the existing signatures before we closed, wrote that into the PSA as well, get new leases signed for tenants that wanted to. So we were able to do that before close as well.
So speaking about property management, what was on the property previously, and what's the plan for property management moving forward?
Yeah, we actually, when we picked it up, the people touring with us and stuff is a realty company. So they actually, they're not very sophisticated in the sense of like we talked about online rent payment and stuff. They're really looking to cut costs as much as possible. So what was on the property was basically, not even locators. I would say locators.
Pure cash accounting, like absolutely no accrual, just like money in, money out.
Yeah, and owner, super nice guy out of California. All he knows is that he owns something in Austin. He doesn't really need to worry about how it's run. But like I said, it is tricky to find management that works at that size. But we did find a company who has a 300 unit that neighbors the property right across the street. So we're able to split some of the payroll costs there. And it is not necessarily the most sustainable model long-term, I would say, because, what if they sell the 300 unit or whatever? It is tricky. However, now owning both of those properties, we're hedged in that sense. And also we're seeing a new property management model coming around where people are charging like a 7, 8, 9% fee on property management to cover internal costs and then no payroll. So they have in-house maintenance teams, in-house leasing teams, more like tech forward leasing strategies and stuff. So that's another long-term leasing strategy for some of those smaller properties is to have like part-time in-house maintenance men from property management companies. So that's also on the table.
So with the property management side of it, what is the current property management company charging to manage the two assets together like this?
So we're on a 4% fee, and then payroll is about 700-ish a unit.
And did you have a reduction in your property management fee when you combined the two, since you can now have on-site full-time?
We did. We came from 5 to 4.
Okay, good. So you had the saving of the payroll cost because you now have the two that can share between the two assets, and then you had the reduction in the property management fee there as well.
Yep.
And I'm sure the property management company appreciated that too. Now, which asset? I'm assuming this, but I could be wrong. But I'm assuming this is two different syndications, or it's two different. I'm not sure how you structured it. Are these syndications? Is that how you structure both of these?
They are down the fairway.
Okay, and they're two separate ones, right? So there's the 42 unit and the 44 unit, and they're just being able to kind of benefit each other by being together. Which asset is the one that actually houses or has the on-site property manager that actually is on that property?
The 42,
the 42 unit. Yeah.
The 44 or the 42?
42.
Yep.
Sorry,
42.
we said it at the same
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if one of you said 44 and one was 42. So the 42 unit is the one that has the property manager on site. And how do they kind of get between the two different assets? Is there a golf cart that you had to buy for them, or are they just walking because that's how close they are, and there's like a gate between the fence, or how's that working?
Yeah, they just walk because it's genuinely 5 feet away from they're right next door.
Okay. All right. Cool. And has there been any? Let me ask you this: have you started to share the amenities yet between the two assets?
Not yet. No.
Okay. Do you foresee any issues with the residents having issues sharing those amenities with the 42 versus and the 44?
Yes, and that's why we've decided to make that an optional paid item, so that it's not going to be all 44 people, because likely not all 44 will opt in. It'll also be a payment per month. so that, there isn't that sort of like class system that could form of like, you're using our amenities, go back to your property. It'll be more like, no, everyone's paying for it. And there's also, it's spaced well because not everyone's going to opt in.
Now, is the 42 unit property going to benefit financially from the 44 unit paying for the amenity use?
Not directly in the sense of like income, but in the sense of, maybe community and retention as well as the payroll savings, then yes.
Is there any difference in the resident demographics between the 42 unit and the 44 unit?
Currently, yes, but optimally in the future, no.
Okay. And once you have kind of make those changes,
Yeah.
it should be similar, so there won't be as much difference between the two, correct?
Correct.
And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about kind of the plan for both of these assets and what's your business plan for any type of interior or exterior innovations and kind of what the CapEx plan is.
Yeah. So I guess to preface that, we have bridge debt on the properties, both of them. But to start with the 42 unit, it's flexible. We have a lot of CapEx, escrowed, ready to go. We've already done 10 of the units of the 42. So it was 100% classic when we picked it up. We've done, basically 23% or whatever of the property. We're getting really good premiums on those. And so we have budgeted CapEx funds to do like 75% of the property. But with what we're seeing in Austin, we bought it for 111 a door. Something across the street just sold for 150. So I think we're kind of tailoring that business plan now to say, hey, maybe we leave more meat on the bone, let the buyer come in, underwrite more upside, because we've proved the business plan and see if we can sell it. That's what a lot of people in Austin are doing. Almost everything that's being sold, they're putting a lot of legwork into the paint, the plumbing, the lighting, all sorts of that stuff. And then, sell a property with good bones and a lot of upside. So that's kind of what we're shifting the business plan towards. But yeah.
And what's the plan as far as the renovations, as far as the kind of where are the rents right now, and what's the plan to be able to get the rents to a certain point?
Yeah, so the rents are at $1,250 right now on the one beds. We picked them up around $950, and the plan is to basically keep the ones that we've renovated, and ultimately, if we can, closer to sale, get those released at another premium, potentially bring on apartment locators, and try to get them to get to a certain number so we can back into an NOI and evaluation, and be able to sell that at the highest possible value for our investors.
And what's the game plan as far as timing on this asset, as far as getting into that new stabilization period with the new, kind of stabilized NOI to be able to have the exit?
Yeah, we're basically, because at this point, as we're filming this, we're 7 months into it. So we're towards the end of the business plan. One thing that we have learned is we probably would have done the exterior sooner if we could go back in time. So right now we're going in and putting the finishing touches on like the paint, some of the siding and stuff. But like I said, the interiors are pretty much ready to go. We got like new granite countertops, undermount sink, new cabinet fronts, LVP flooring, pretty typical stuff for, stainless appliances when we could. We're moving towards black though, because of all the supply chain stuff. But those are the units that are getting $1,250. And so the idea is now we're just recently leased up to, I think, 95%, where we can kind of sit, keep rents where they are. Like Kyle said, if we can sell this thing with most of them, or, with those 10 units at 1,300 and the rest of them at 1,000, we sell it to the buyer with, hey, $300 of upside built in. Then we should be good to just cash flow where we are right now. And then our yield maintenance on our loan will be up in about 11 months. And then at that point, we'll be ready to sell for no prepayment.
Okay. And let's talk about the submarket a little bit. I know you mentioned kind of the submarket and kind of it being, maybe not the best submarket in the Austin, Texas area, but kind of now re-gentrifying itself, kind of coming back around.
Yeah, so it's about a mile south of the Domain, which is Austin's big investment center. We're spending a tremendous amount of money in that area trying to make it the second downtown. Its skyscrapers are up there. You have Indeed's offices. You have a lot of different other VRBO offices, et cetera, and tons of retail. Neiman Marcus and things of that nature are all there. It's a very nice area for sure. And then we also built the MLS stadium 0.7 miles away from the property as well. And so it has great highway access. It's just been traditionally a Hispanic community and more workforce housing, but you're starting to see that domain, there's so many service jobs coming in to supply those white collar jobs that are coming to Austin, because there's typically, for every one white collar job, you have 3 service jobs to support that job that comes to an area. And so we're seeing that those people need a place to live, and this is really the last affordable pocket. We're even starting to see some development, a tremendous amount of development actually in this area. That's going to actually finish right around 2023-ish. So when that comes up, that's going to further support the submarket, and we're just really trying to time that well and to take advantage.
Yeah, and especially in Austin with supply being a huge issue. Not a developer-friendly city. If we need 10,000 units a year, we're building like 2. So for us, it's really good to be positioned right there. We're right literally across the street from a 300-unit 1 and 2 bed development that's going to finish in 2022. So, with their rents coming in, like on new builds, let's just say 1,500-1,600, that's going to position us really well as a cozy little 80s build garden style apartment.
You talked about supply chain. How is the supply chain there in Austin when it comes to the labor force, but also I know you mentioned appliances as well, not to get the stainless steel and kind of going back and just doing the black appliances. And I'm sure it's probably an upgrade from what's there anyway, whether it might have been white or black appliances, but talk to us a little bit about the supply chain issues that you're experiencing right now.
Yeah, it's been tough, period. Supply of labor, supply of appliances, same in Austin as everywhere else. I think because Austin's so hot, so much construction, so much going on, it is difficult to find vendors and stuff. Luckily, we're using the construction management through our property management company. It's been going really well. We have a really good GC that we use. So labor has been fine, and we've been able to get things done on time. As far as appliances, like I said, there's a little bit of debate of people who pick stainless over black or vice versa. Right now, it's not much of a question because you can either wait 2 months for a stainless fridge or you can get 5 blacks in same day. So that's what we've been doing. And we actually did. It was a challenge that we had to get creative, and Kyle and I almost went out and started loading up fridges ourselves because we would have units that were fully turned, ready to go in 8 days. But we had to sit on them vacant for another 20 because we couldn't get a fridge in there or a dishwasher or stove or whatever. So we've had to really put our finger on the PM and say, hey, what do we need to do? Who can we talk to at Home Depot, Lowe's, HD Supply, whatever, to make sure that we're getting appliances on time. But that was definitely a little curveball that was slowing down our renovations.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about what you had mentioned earlier on about some of the leases being month to month. So some people, when they acquire an asset and there's lots of month to month, they think of that as being a benefit, but then there's also some people that might not think it's a benefit because of the potential of all these residents just being able to leave tomorrow and you being stuck with an empty property. So walk us through your thoughts on that.
You go for it, Kyle.
Yeah, so when we inherited that, I think our first, like you said, not only were they month to month, but they were at times unsigned, or the person we had no background on them. So now you're saying not only is it month to month, but you don't know whether this person has a background that's potentially not ideal, right? Just to put it mildly. So that adds to the fear for sure. But we ended up trying to, all right, can we get people to come in and do a background check? And those people now we can feel more comfortable. And that was kind of the game plan, is if we have more data, then it shouldn't be a problem. Now we are flexible and we can renovate when we need to, especially when we can't evict anyone during the pandemic as well. So it did provide a tremendous amount of flexibility. Our game plan was really, let's invite people to come and do their background checks and to sign these leases and to do the income verification. And the people that come, that's great. We'll do our best. We don't want to push too hard because then everyone may move out. So it's kind of a delicate balance, but that was our main thing, is if we can get data, we'll feel a lot more comfortable. And so we just that was our action.
Yeah. And a funny thing about this submarket is a lot of these tenants, because you also have to look at it from the lens of, holy crap, these people don't have a single piece of paper that says they're supposed to pay rent, and they still do. So there's also a benefit there of the tenants are actually, they want to live there. And in fact, as we've learned on the leasing side, rent usually is not the problem. People come in, they're fine with our $1,250 or whatever it is, but they say, hey, I need to move in 2 hours. Does that work? And if you say, oh, no, we're not ready yet, they'll walk 100 feet down the street and until they find a place. So like a lot of like, especially the blue collar, like workforce type housing people, they're looking for like those quick leases. So yeah, like Kyle said, those month to month, it really, it's a good lens that we can see who the tenant is through. Because someone, if we go to someone and say, hey, we need your signature on this, they'll say, okay, cool, fine, boom, lease. And then someone who's a little flakier, who has a balance on them, or who's not as willing to, re-sign on that, we're actually able to like non-renew those people, get those units renovated, and now we're at the point where we're pretty much stabilized. We don't really have any problem tenants anymore. So I think we were able to kind of straddle it as being a good thing and a bad thing, but turning the bad thing into a good thing. So
I know you mentioned having one Section 8 a resident on the property. Are there any other Section 8 residents?
No, she was the only one.
Okay. So with not any other issues from that standpoint.
Nope.
Talk to us a little bit about these apartment locators. I've heard of them before, but for the listener who maybe doesn't know a lot about these apartment locators that you've mentioned a couple of times, talk to us about who they are and what they do and what's the benefit for you for the property.
Yeah, so locators can be essentially what they are is they'll be a company, a third-party company that acts kind of as a leasing agent. So they'll literally go locate apartments, find good deals, and they'll be sort of employed. You can think of it as like a contractor for an appointment or like a 1099. So they'll literally say, hey, we're going to go try to find a tenant, get them in here at whatever rent you tell us, and then you can pay them a percentage of the lease. You can pay them a fee, whatever it might be, whatever the structure is. But the benefit to that is, especially as you're posturing yourself for a sale, you can go to a locator and say, hey, we really, really want these one beds at $1,300. If we pay you first month's rent on the lease or something, can we pay a premium to get these units filled? The locator gets you tenants who are paying $1,300. And then that can posture you well for a sale, or even just from an operations standpoint. They can be kind of an alternative to leasing agents. So they can literally directly connect people looking for apartments with your apartment. So yeah.
And also often
go
depending
through
upon
and actually do the tours and everything like that too.
Yeah. So especially nowadays with technology, we're even looking at like not virtual tours, but where you have the key in a little lockbox that you unlock with your phone, so that locators and leasing agents can come in and do physical tours with actual prospective tenants whenever they want. So that's something that we're going to get rolling in the next month or two.
You were saying something there, Kyle. I think I kind of cut you off.
No worries. I was just going to say also depending upon the way you structure the fee, it doesn't necessarily show up as a concession, which is also a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, definitely sounds like an interesting kind of benefit for you from the property perspective to reduce your payroll and overhead, but you still have some expense, but then your NOI still looks pretty nice as well. Obviously, when somebody's still looking to buy and acquire the asset, they're going to still underwrite as if there was their own management on there or however they wanted to structure it. So, but it's definitely a good thing to be able to get residents in there for a little bit cheaper than trying to hire somebody full time to do that.
Right.
So let's talk about the financing. How did you guys end up financing this deal? I know you mentioned bridge debt early on, but walk us through the terms of the loan.
Yeah. So another funny thing about this deal, it's hard to find bridge financing under $5 million. A lot of bridge debt, it gets really attractive, like where we are in the market cycle, like over 10 million, 5 to 10 million is okay. Under 5 million is a little awkward. So it was actually difficult. We were almost getting scared at the beginning, like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to find debt for this thing? But luckily we had a good broker, Hans from Old Capital, who was helping us out, and he was able to hook us up with LaSalle, their private lender. And the terms of that loan, real quick, we had a 4.25 plus LIBOR. So we're basically at a floating 4.5 rate. We did buy a rate cap for 3 years. It's 3 years, 36 months of interest only payments. And then we have an option for a 1-year extension. And then we have 15-month yield maintenance. So, we have to pay a yield maintenance exit fee up until 15 months, at which point the prepayment penalty gets waived until month 24. So you have like a 9-month window to sell with no prepayment. And then we actually had no origination fee, which is awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. Was there any exit fee?
So there is, I apologize. I said no prepayment. There's a 1% exit fee in that 9-month window, and then a 1.5% after. And then, like I said, yield maintenance up until month 15. So no one was that.
Okay.
Except
So after the 15 months, there is no exit fee, or you still have the exit fee, you still have the yield maintenance?
After month 15, it goes from yield maintenance to 1%. And then after month 24, it goes from 1 to 1.5.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense. And what's the plan as far as how long are you planning on holding on to this debt? And obviously, you're going to probably wait until after the 15 months, but at what point are you going to do kind of refinance that or potentially sell the asset?
Yeah, so like we said, since we're pretty stabilized, I wouldn't say quicker than expected, but quicker than projected. We are hoping to do it as soon as we can. So if our yield maintenance is up October of next year, July, then we're hoping to either refinance as soon as we can because our NOI will be pretty healthy. Or we did also present the opportunity to investors of, hey, Austin's hot. If we can sell this thing for a really nice buck, then we might do that as well. So
it just depends on what the market's doing around that time frame to figure out whether you want to do just refinance and hold on to it for a few more years or going ahead and selling it and capitalizing on it.
Yeah. And even, we've been thinking about recapping as well. So I don't know if the listeners are familiar with that, but you can think of a recap as basically selling it to yourself. So if we say, holy crap, we crushed it on this deal, do we want to deliver 2x, 3x returns, or do we want to sell it to ourselves at a good basis and set us up for another good deal on the same property? Especially if we can maybe buy other stuff on the same street. And, right now it's an 86 unit portfolio. You can think of it like that. Well, if we buy another 200 units down the street, what if we could sell this thing as a 300 unit portfolio? So that's another exit strategy we're thinking of. But
good. So how did you end up structuring this deal with your investors? I know you mentioned early on, you guys did both of them with a syndication structure, but how did you end up structuring the deal with your investors? And then how did you end up raising the capital?
Yeah, we did a 70-30 split, pretty standard, and then we had a 7% preferred rate of return. And then fee structure is pretty normal as well.
Okay. And how did you end up going about raising the capital from your investors? Was it just within your own networks or?
We had our own network. That was a large chunk of it, but we also had a partner, Joel, who came on, signed on the loan, put up upfront money, and was sort of a mentor, helped us. He raised a decent amount of money, and then Abel Pacheco also came on, was involved in operations, of course, as an active role, but also raised some money. And those were the three main GPs on those. Yeah.
And we did both of these deals 506B. So we didn't market them at all, completely personal relationships with the GPs. So like Kyle said, we just really had a 4-person GP, tight group, very involved. We all know our LPs really well. So, yeah.
Great. Awesome. Well, can you guys think of anything else that we have not touched on just yet that might have came up throughout the process that might be good for us to talk about?
Let's see.
I think do the exterior as quickly as possible.
That's what I was going to say. I think we're doing really well. I think we are riding the Austin wave a little bit. But one thing we did learn as, relatively new operators is that you want to do the exterior first because we walked in, we were so excited. We had our renderings of the quartz countertops and stuff. And then we did that, but you realize, hey, if someone comes in tours, they don't see the other 41 units. They see the outside in their unit. So it's really important if the exterior is not in good shape to get in there, paint it, new signage, make it pop, make it look like an exciting place to live that someone can take pride in. And then obviously they're going to love their unit regardless. If you're putting in granite and new appliances and new floors, it's going to be hard to mess that part up. But if you can really get the exterior going well, it's going to help your leasing. You're not going to have to do it later. So we're kind of learning that now. I think, we've been able to sign good premium leases, get good tenants in. The community is going very well. People are, as soon as we took over, a lot of tenants were like, holy crap, these people will fix my stove now. Cause I think they were just being a little neglected. And as soon as we closed, we had some contingency for fixed HVAC, for example. As soon as we closed, we had 10 tenants come forward and say, hey, my AC hadn't worked in 3 months. And we're like, what the heck? So we had to move some of that up. So I think just as we're learning to be operators, you want to overestimate how much exterior and the timeline of exterior up front, because that's really going to be what changes the vibe. And everything of the property.
Well, Kyle and Van, thank you so much for being with us here today and sharing all this information about these two acquisitions that are kind of going to one at this point. But how can the listeners reach out to you if they have further questions for you about this acquisition, or if they have some reason, or if they want to be able to follow you more down the road?
Yeah, I would say go to zioncapgroup.com. That's where we have everything about our company, and we explain the entire process. We give aspects about our team, and you can also sign up for our Appfolio portal and get updates on our latest deals, etc.
Yeah, and then personally, you can follow me on Instagram at Van Hagye. I'm sure that'll be in the notes. You can also email me or text me, call me, whatever. I'll have my info there as well. So yeah, and then.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate both of you jumping on here, and looking forward to continue to follow you both as you close more deals, and also having you on a future episode as well.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Awesome. Thank you so much.